Alright y'all, I decided to create a fall fantasy tag. Two things. One, I love talking about books. And two, I love fantasy books. And three, let's just add a third one, it's fall season. So like, duh. And because I'm a fantasy girly, and maybe you are too, a fantasy book lover, this video is for you. Let's answer some fall fantasy questions. I'm gonna leave all of the questions in my description box, so check it out if you want to do one yourself. Let's get into the video. I just like created a bunch of fall fantasy questions. The first question is, what was the first fantasy book you've ever read? I remember. I feel like Dr. Seuss doesn't count because technically that is fantasy, whimsical, and I was reading Dr. Seuss when I was like 5, you know, like young baby. Whenever I was in middle school and high school, where I really started reading, the first fantasy book I ever read was from the Fable Haven series. And then there was like the Need series. I think it was called Need. I'm gonna have to look it up. But the one on the top of my head is the Fable Haven series. That's when I fell in love with like fairies, different worlds, magical realism, like that was, yeah. And that book was recommended to me by one of my best friends in middle school. She was like, oh, you should read this book. And like, we never even talked about like liking books. And then she recommended that book to me, and then she had the entire series. So she let me borrow the entire series, and I read it so fast. It was so good. And me and her became like quick besties because like our love for reading. Like I didn't even realize that like that is what started all of this. Her recommending me that series, and I will forever be in debt to her. So thanks, Jamie. Okay, question number 2. What is the thickest fantasy book you own? Girl, y'all know these fantasy books are like huge, right? One of these. It's either A Court of Wings and Ruin. Dude, look at how big this book is. And I think like there's a book that's bigger than this one if I remember correctly. This book, I already looked it up. I'm currently reading this one. Oh, that's why my yeah. This book is 699 pages. But like this book is really thick too. Iron Flame. And I love the sprayed edges. It's just like very much aggressive. Let's see how many pages this one is. Okay, so it's not quite. It's 623. Yeah, my thickest fantasy book that I own so far is A Court of Wings and Ruin at 699 pages. But isn't the orange book bigger? Not looking forward to that. But question number 3. What is a fantasy book that you started reading but never finished? In other words, you DNF'd it. There's only one book that I DNF'd that's a fantasy read, and I literally just showed you. It's this one. And I feel so bad. Like I really feel bad because I really wanted to get into it because the first book, Fourth Wing, I started reading it right around this time last year, and I like my bookmark is still in there.
Girl, that's some tea right there.
I literally DNF'd on page 99. Wow. Barely 100 pages in, and I DNF'd it. I love that my bookmark is still in there for proof that like I didn't finish this. It looks so cool, and like it's supposed to be good. And the third book comes out in like 2025. It's called Onyx Storm or something like that. And I really want to just see what's up. Like, have you guys read this? Have you finished it? Like, I've heard so many mixed reviews about it, but a third one is coming out. So I just love the covers, and I just love the way it feels. I like the storyline, but it's slowed down a lot in the second book for me personally. Have you read it? What are your thoughts? Let me know what you think.
Yeah.
This is a book that I haven't finished, but I really, really want to. I'm probably going to. Like next month. Question number 4. What is your favorite fantasy book? That's a really hard question, I'm not even gonna lie. Because to be honest, I fell in love with reading fantasy books when I read the Fable Haven series, but I really, really started digging fantasy with Harry Potter. Like, I read Harry Potter in high school. I read the entire series. I was actually like in my high school public library, like checking out Harry Potter books. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is so weird. Like, what am I doing? Like, it was so like not cool. That's funny. Yeah, I was in high school checking out the Harry Potter series. I remember, I will never forget, I was reading like the second to last book during chemistry class. I will never forget, like I had it wasn't even like I was texting, you know, I was reading, but I had the book in my lap, and I couldn't stop reading it, God. Even in chemistry class. I don't want to say I didn't need to pay attention, but like it was, to me, chemistry is a lot like math, and I was really good at math. I'm still good at math as well. And so in my head, I'm like, oh, it's just a bunch of equations. I figured out the equation and then whatever. Like I was really good at it. So I felt like, you know, I could just like skip this lesson and just read during chemistry class. And then my teacher was like walking around, like seeing what we're doing, and I looked so suspicious. The desk is up here, but my head is like in my lap. So it looks like I'm like texting, you know, how the kids do. But she walked around and she's like, are you reading? And I was like, I was like, yeah. Sorry. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm gonna do the work. Like, I'm gonna do the work, but like, I just wanted to finish this chapter real quick. And she's like, what are you reading? Like, she didn't even care. She was like, what are you reading? And I was like, Harry Potter. She was like, which one? And I was like, the second to last one. She was like, okay, I understand. She was like, well, put that away, Jerrilyn, and like, do your chemistry work. And then when you're done, go back to reading. The biggest nerd. Like, what? It's giving like nerdy. Finish your chemistry work and then go back to reading in chemistry class. Like, girl, who says that? But that was me in high school. So anyway, I feel like that's how you know. I was willing to get in trouble for reading in the middle of a class that people failed left and right, but I was just so unbothered, and the teacher knew I was good, because if she would have felt like I was whatever, she would have done more to like damage me. But she was just like, oh, what are you reading? Anyway, yeah, I would say that Harry Potter has to be my favorite fantasy book. Like, and it's not just because it's Harry Potter and everybody likes Harry Potter. It really is because like that book caught my soul. There's a reason why there are movies about it. There's a reason why there's a whole Harry Potter world at Universal Studios at Disney World. Like, every time me and my family go to Disney World, we went last summer. No, wait, that was this year. We went in March. Every time we go to Disney World, we always go to the Harry Potter world. We drink a butter beer. My brother bought a wand, and we were doing those like interactive things around the park, girl. And we're like not young. Like, I'm in my late 20s, my brother's in his 30s, and we're just like walking around like the kids. Like, it was so fun. And me and my brother were like talking about the books and like the stories, and like it was so interactive. Like, no other book situation has ever made me feel like that. I saw the first movie before I read the first book, but then I like read all of the books before I saw the rest of the movie. So like, it was kind of like that, you know? I'm so happy. That's why I love talking about books, and I love talking about fantasy stuff. So yeah. What are some anticipated fantasy books that you want to read? To be honest, the only fantasy book that really comes to mind that I really actually want to read is Onyx Storm, the one that's coming out, like the third book of this one. But also, the third book of the Legendborn series is coming out, Oathbound or something like that. That is a book that I really want to read too. I just got the second book. If you haven't watched my fall book haul, that kind of rhymes, go watch that video, because I got the second book of the Legendborn series, Bloodmarked, in that video. It's a really nice book. Like, I love the sprayed edges on that book too. But anyway, once I finish reading that book, I know the third book is gonna hit. I just have a really good feeling about it. So that is an anticipated read, in addition to Onyx Storm. Basically, the third book's a fantasy series I'm super like looking forward to reading. Next question: what is the best fantasy book you've read this year? Best one? Yee, that is a tough question. This is a really hard question, because so many of them are 5-star reads. It goes back to the classic, the OG. A fantasy book that I read this year that I absolutely loved, that was my favorite. There are two that come, I did three. There are two that comes to mind, but I'm only gonna show you one because I feel like I just need to be more decisive in my life. Okay, so this one, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This book, in addition to all of the other fantasy books that I read, this book I always remember the most about it being my favorite one. Like, because it was so well written, and like the storyline was so good. And I think that this book gets you into that world, and like once you read this book, you're gonna read the rest of the series. Like, you have to. But like, if you only read the first book in this series, like A Court of Thorns and Roses, you might not get through the whole series, because that book is decent. I didn't like the ending, but like, it doesn't make you wanna like run to read all of them, in my opinion. But this one, if you're a little curious about continuing on the series, you should continue on the series. If you like started the first one but then read, like, once you read this book, I'm telling you, you are gonna want to finish the entire series, because you're gonna want to know, like, you won't see any other stuff in this book that's coming. You won't see it coming, like, until it happens, and you're just like. And right now I'm reading the third book, the pink one, and it literally picks up where this book left off, you know what I mean? I don't know if that book is gonna turn into my favorite one too, but so far, like, man, my heart is racing. This is so good. This is so good. I love a book with a good twist, and I love a book that has the right amount of action, which is why I liked A Court of Mist and Fury, because it was like, you're in a different world. Literally, you're in a world with fairies who have powers, and there are these things, and then there's like the love connection, sabotage, and just ruthlessness, and just like, it's just so good. So good, so good. what book do you want to reread? Honestly, I really want to reread this one, The Divine Rivals. This book was so freaking good, and it's like way smaller than these other fantasy books, but there's a second book. But I just love like the world of this story. I just love how this book is about like writers, and they're like for real like rivals to enemies. Wait, that's the same thing. Rivals to lovers, enemies to lovers. They're literally like enemies, because I remember like it's all coming back to me, like Iris, Winnow, and Kit. Roman, Kit. Like, how do I remember their names? Like that's how you know like it's memorable. But like Iris and Roman are complete rivals. They both work at the Oskis at this like magazine company, and they're both like competing for the exact same position. There's only one position and they both want that position, so they're literally like competing against each other, trying to write the best stories and da 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 da. So like they're for real like rivals. You know, I hate those books that's like rivals to lovers, and they're like not even rivals, they're just like people, you know. But they are really rivals in here, because they're literally like competing against each other and trying to like pick each other apart and find each other's flaws, like their writing style and stuff like that. So it's very, very unique. And in addition to them being rivals to lovers, there are gods in this world who have been asleep or whatever, and now they're like waking up, and then there's like a war going on, and the gods are like recruiting humans to like fight in this war. And girl, it is actually like really freaking good. This book is so fucking, oh, I just cursed, sorry. That never happens. But yeah, this book is so good. I just love how it's not just about two people who are rivals who are falling in love. It's also about them being rivals, but then there's like this magical war brewing.
Yeah.
What is a fantasy series that you enjoyed that had mixed reviews? That's a really tough question. I want to say this one, this series, because like everybody, in my opinion, most people absolutely love the first book, but not a lot of people like the second book. The second book got so many mixed reviews, and I'm feeling like that same thing is happening with Iron Flame and Fourth Wing. But mostly, I absolutely love this series. Like, this is one of my favorite fantasy series as well, and it's not like talked about like the Avatar series or even like Powerless or like Fourth Wing. Like, it's not as hype. I feel like the first book was talked about a lot, but then this book, it kind of like fell. The second book is longer than the first book, and the second book, it does like literally pick up where the first book left off. Like, the first book does end on the biggest cliffhanger. Is coming back to me now. Like, the first book ends on like a oh my god. It makes you want to run to the bookstore for real. And then you read the second book and it's like, I think it's really good still. So like, I don't know what everybody else is talking about. And that's one thing that's hard. Like, when you write a really good first book, the second book has to be better than the first book, or people are gonna be like, oh no, I don't like that, you know? It's hard to make a good second book, you know, if the first book is like so good. But I guess if you're Sarah J Maas, that doesn't matter, because this is the second book and I think the second book is better than the first one. But anyway,
Yeah.
it depends on who you are as a writer, I guess. But yeah, this series definitely got a lot of mixed reviews, but I want to reread it, so I really might reread it actually. It's like the perfect cozy read, because it's always raining there. They like ride on like trains, and they have like trench coats and stuff, and that's just giving fall to me. But
Yeah.
who is your fantasy fictional crush? Reese. My boy Reese from A Court of Mist and Fury. Once you meet Reese, it's a wrap. You're done for. There are a lot of like good guys, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Reese is number one. I talked about this in my mid-year book tag too. Like, it was like, who's your favorite fictional boyfriend? And even on the fantasy front, it's been Reese, because Reese was so okay. My type, I'm not even gonna lie, I think I like bad boy who's a good boy, you know what I mean? I think I like the bad boy on the outside, but on the inside he's like the biggest teddy bear. He's like, you know, that's my vibe. Because I think that's also like me. Well, actually I don't know, but personally I think like on the outside I'm like this like tough girl, you know, tough woman. Like, you can't really like break me, you can't really like access me fully unless I really let you, which is usually a no. But on the inside, like, once you have access to me, I'm a whole different person. Like, I really am like a very different person. So that's the kind of dude that I'm attracted to as well. Like, a dude who on the outside everybody thinks he's this way. First of all, he's attractive. Second of all, he has this like demeanor that's like tough as nails. You will not break him. In fact, he's probably gonna break you before you even like think twice, you know? People are afraid of him, but not well, for Reese, is because he's actually like worth being afraid of. But in real life, I don't want somebody to be afraid of my man, but like, I want them to like respect him, you know? Just be like a presence of authority type of thing, you know? And that's Reese. And also, once you break down, like once you get to know Reese and you like pull back these layers and layers of like toughness, you you realize, oh my god, you know, so
Yeah.
that's 100% my type, like for real. The other person that came close to this was from this book, Powerless, what's his name? Kai. Prince Kai. I love Kai too because it's kind of that same vibe. Like he literally is the prince that goes around and like, according to the synopsis, I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read it, but this prince literally goes around and he what does he do? He goes around and he kills ordinaries. Like in this world, they have elites and they have ordinaries, and if like you don't have powers, you're like considered ordinary. So they like banish you from their town so that you don't give them like this disease. Like if you're ordinary, you're gonna give them the disease and they'll lose their powers too. Girl, it's crazy. But anyway, literally this prince goes around like getting rid of ordinaries. But then he meets Peyton, who's also ordinary, but like that girl, you just gotta read. It's actually like, this book is really freaking good too.
Yeah.
There's a novella and there's a second book, so I need to go get those.
But yeah.
I like Kai because he is the enforcer, that's what it's called. He's the enforcer, so like he kind of literally enforces the law that the king has set, his father. And so he has had a tough upbringing. He's just like gone through a lot. He had like, I mean, he's literally a machine. He has literally been raised to be a machine for his father and the future king, you know? And it's just crazy. When you pull back layers and layers, you find out that like, oh my god, like he's just great. So yeah, I would say Reese is number one though, because Reese plays that part so freaking well. Because like with this, you kind of see it coming because it's like, oh, he's the enforcer. With Reese, it's not as obvious like, oh, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil any books for you. But like, it's just so well written in the Court of Mr. Fury. Okay, moving on. I can talk about my boyfriends all day, okay? How many fantasy books have you read this year? I'm gonna do a rapid fire of all the fantasy books that I've read this year in no particular order. Ready, set, go. Currently. I'm also currently reading Bride. So far, I like it. Can you relate? Have you read any of these books? I don't know why I keep doing this. Can you relate? You should do a fall fantasy tag as well and like tag me in it so I can see what's up, okay? This is heavy.